Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. I am your host with the most, Chris. I got a big announcement to make in the podcast right now, and we're also going to go into a lot of crazy topics that are going on right now, and something new that I'm going to be doing for the podcast. So let's get started. So first, I want to take this time to introduce someone. I want to introduce our newest sponsor for the podcast. That is right. If you guys have seen my video on either Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or Twitter, you guys saw that I have just announced that we have a new sponsor to the podcast, and that is One Guy from Italy on University. They are a local Lubbock restaurant. They are parked right next to Texas Tech University. It's an awesome spot to get some food. They have some of the best food in town, in my opinion. Their calzones are just absolutely to die for. And cool fact, they have been voted to have the best calzone in Texas. So thank you guys for being our first official sponsor of the podcast. They gave me this cool Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle box they did for a convention last year. It's very awesome. If you guys are listening to this on Spotify or Amazon Music, it's the Ninja Turtles on there with the One Guy logo. If you guys are seeing this, here it is. It's awesome. Thank you guys for being the first ever sponsor, and welcome to the podcast. Now, going on to some more things today. There's a lot of topics we got to cover. First up, so I took a poll on Twitter and on TikTok and everywhere on my social media earlier this weekend, and as you guys know, the XFL season has begun. It's in full swing right after Super Bowl, so you don't have to miss out on any more football for the rest of the spring. Now, I did ask if you guys would like me to cover the XFL, kind of like what I did like with the NFL, covered the games, the stats, what I thought about it, things of that nature, and I did get some yeses on Twitter. I got some yeses on TikTok and Instagram and everything else. So I have officially decided that we will be going in depth about the XFL coming up in the next episode. Next week, you check it out. We will be doing like more in depth about the games, just because I wasn't able to catch most of them, or I was only able to watch the highlights. I like to personally watch the game because I believe you get more insight, and you also kind of develop. That's where I feel like you develop more of your opinion. Is if you sit there and watch the game. Obviously, if you watch the highlights, you're gonna only watch the good things out of both teams. You're not gonna see where the negatives were, what the positives were, and things of that nature. So that's kind of how I kind of go about watching the games. If any of you were ever curious about how I watch the games and where I kind of come up with my opinions or what I think about them, it's because I sit there and I thoroughly watch the games. So I'm going to be doing that for the XFL for the remainder of their season. So stick around for that one. If you're a big fan of the XFL, buckle up because I'm very excited. It seems like a lot of fun. And to kind of pinpoint what I saw in some of the games and kind of like what they're doing, it's very unique. And what I mean by that is, like, it's very different from the NFL. Like, you can tell that's not the NFL. And not because of the only 8 teams playing, not because of the crazy unique jerseys that they got going on or anything of that nature. It's because of what they're doing. And I believe Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, he's done an excellent job revamping this organization. And it got a lot of good ratings after opening week. So, very excited. I know it was the San Antonio Brahmas, I believe is how you pronounce their name. They had an excellent turnout. I believe they just announced this past weekend that they will be hosting the XFL Championship in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. So that's also very exciting. So if you are an XFL fan or if you live in San Antonio, congratulations. You guys just got the championship game. So applause to y'all. And so some things I did notice that were definitely different and unique was the rules. Some of the rules are very different compared to what how the NFL kind of runs their game. For example, one of the rules is only one tap on your foot. So kind of like how college rules apply when you're a wide receiver trying to catch the football. That kind of makes things, I believe, a little bit more easier for the wide receivers. Obviously, when you're in the NFL, you got to get 2 feet down, and it does make it more challenging. I will admit that, but having the 1 foot, kind of balances it out instead of trying to have 2 feet, and it's a good way for you to practice getting 2 feet down. So I thought that was one of the interesting rules. Another interesting rule that's different was the kick. One of the things that caught my eye in the beginning was kickoff. So, and traditionally in the NFL, obviously we saw the kicking team lines up around the 35-yard line, the kickoff, they have to run downfield and go tackle the returner. And obviously the formation is very different. In the XFL, it's not that. So what they do is, I believe the kicker's still on the 35-yard line, they kick off, but the kickoff team and the kick return team are lined up 5 yards apart from each other. and the kicking team can only go after the kick returner catches the ball, or I believe it's like 3 seconds after the ball touches the ground, they can go. If I'm incorrect on that, please someone correct me. But I still think that's very interesting. It's definitely a different way to do kickoff, and in my opinion, a little bit of a safer way because in the NFL, they took away the running start. Obviously, you can't take or they do sort of a running start, but they don't like do it. They're not super far like away from the kick, or they take it away because it's to prevent more injuries. And I think this is a little bit more of a protective way because you have to only run 5 yards and your opponent is lined up 5 yards in front of you. So there's only so much impact that'll go onto that. You can't really blow them up unless you have, just a lot of a big weight advantage over your opponent. So I think that's definitely a cool way to do kickoff now. It's definitely unique. It definitely makes the XFL stand out from the USFL and the NFL, the Canadian Football League. I think that's very unique, and it's also very safe in my opinion because it limits the full speed ramming into each other, and it kind of, in my opinion, from what I saw, it has to make you have to be careful on who you put a kick returner because they have to be elusive because it's not as simple as I have people in the back, way in the back with me trying to protect me. It's, everyone's right there. I got to get around, or those blocks have to be good enough to make the hole for me to punch it through. So the XFL definitely has that going, and that's very interesting, and it's very exciting to see, and it's definitely different. And sometimes it is good to have a little different set of eyes and definitely be open-minded to these changes. Now, next rule change is extra points. So they took away the extra point kicking, so you don't have to kick an extra point anymore. In the XFL, they give you 3 options. You line up, I believe, on the 2-yard line. You can, for that option, you only get 1 extra point. If you're at the 5-yard line, you can get 2 extra points. And if you're lined up at the 10-yard line, you can get 3 extra points. And I think that's a cool way to kind of, if you're in that situation of, I got to play catch up. I believe I forgot which one of the games it was, but it was the one where A.J. McCarron was on the Battlehawks where they were down and they came back because of these new rules. They scored a touchdown and then they scored 3 points to get back into the game. So it definitely makes the games more intense because it's not as simple as, okay, I have to go for 2. I got to get the onside kick. Now you have an option to at least score a total of 9 points in one drive. Like, that's very possible. So if you're down by 9, you're not out of the game, and if you're leading by 9, you're not safe in the XFL, which I think is very creative in my opinion, especially like if you kind of run an offense like how Sirianni runs it with the Eagles, with that weird push thing that they do with Jalen Hurts, that makes the whole game interesting. And on top of it, I believe it challenges the offense a little bit more because they have to be, creative and they have to be able to break the defense. And, going on with that, you have to be very strategic in how you're going to score points. You can't just, I score 1 touchdown, let's just, score the 1 extra point. Now teams are going to have to be, a little bit more strategic in how they're going to want to do it, especially probably later in the season when, you could tell which offense is definitely the more elevated compared to the others. And you're the opposing team, you're going to be in a shootout, you got to make sure you're in the lead. So I definitely think that it's going to make the game more intense going into the future, and it's going to be fun to watch. And I believe it brings more interest into the game. It, definitely strives to be unique. Definitely key word here is uniqueness, and that's what the NFL or the XFL, I apologize, is striving for. And next up, different rule changes is onside kicks. I believe if you're tied or trailing, if you're one of the team, if your opposing team is trailing or tied, instead of going for an onside kick, what you can do is go for it on 4th and 15. And if you convert the 4th and 15, you get the ball at your own 25-yard line and you can book it down the field. And I think that's awesome because if you've seen in the NFL, the onside kick, it's very hard to recover. I believe it's like about 70 to 80%, probably close to 90% of the time, the hands team that's receiving the ball, most times they get it, and it's very hard to recover an onside kick we've seen it. I mean, maybe like a couple teams have been able to, recover a lot. I believe it was the Indianapolis Colts whenever Pat McAfee was still there. He was just somehow really good at kicking on, just kicking in general. And he was really good at getting onside kicks, and they were kind of like one of the better teams at it. So aside of that, like it's very hard, or the kickers have to get creative on how they're going to do the onside kick. I remember in 2020, I believe the Cowboys with Greg Zuerlein, he would do like that weird watermelon kick, so that way like it spin. It was really weird, and it was definitely you had to get creative to get the ball back. In this scenario, you can get the ball back as long as you convert 4th and 15, and I think 4th and 15 is a kind of a good. It's a good distance because if you do it from 4th and 10, it's kind of like not as, I believe it's like not as fair because they just scored and whatnot. And also, it gives the defense an absolute shot at possibly getting the ball back, because we have to keep in mind that they're the return team. They're supposed to get the ball back. So if you put them at 4th and 15 and they don't get it, it's essentially the same as them kicking the ball off. So I think that was definitely a great way to incorporate that rule. And I think the NFL should look into that, to be honest, because that's actually pretty cool. That takes away the basically automatic chance that the hands team or the receiving team is gonna get the ball, and it's definitely like kind of an alternative, to that. So that way it can make the game more interesting. It could definitely challenge the players, in my opinion, because obviously the coaching staff has to be smart and they have to have a designed play. But if you're like, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, whoever, you got, it's gonna put you at that moment. If you're good, if you're great, get the onside and let's get the ball and let's move. And on top of that, it's definitely gonna challenge like I said, the defense, because you're more than likely gonna get the ball back. That's kind of the whole point of it. But you got to make that stop, especially if they just scored on you. This is your chance to make sure they don't score again. And that's definitely kind of to spark that competitive edge between all the players, and that's very exciting. So from here on out, like I said earlier, I will be talking about the XFL, kind of like how I did in the NFL. I know mostly in this podcast I talk more about NFL stuff and a little bit of things that are going on in the sports world. So we will be discussing the XFL, kind of how I did with the NFL, watching the games and stuff like that. And I won't be talking about any of the games this week just because I didn't get to watch them like, full on. I kind of just saw the highlights to kind of see, if I wanted to cover the XFL or not, but I left it all up to you guys. You guys voted yes. So next episode, we will be talking about the XFL in depth. Next up on our list, this is kind of more NBA news. This crazy announcement broke the internet, broke Twitter again. McClung, the winner of the Slam Dunk Contest. Now, McClung, first of all, I'm going to give my props to McClung. Congratulations on winning the Slam Dunk Contest. Like, I mean, honestly, congratulations to you. If you guys don't know who McClung is, definitely YouTube him, because he's big. But if currently he is in the G League right now. He went to school at Georgetown and Texas Tech. I did see him in high school. I remember seeing his dunk highlight tapes on Ball is Life. I remember he was all over that whenever I was, kind of seeing him. He was fantastic. I believe he was like one of the best players in the state of Virginia, or he probably was the best player in Virginia. And he was definitely up there. He went to Georgetown for a couple of years, transferred to Texas Tech, and then I believe after the 2020 year, he decided to go to the NBA draft. He went undrafted. He's been all over the place. I believe last season he was with the Lakers, he was with the Warriors, he was with the Bulls. And now he's back in the G League. I believe last year he won G League Rookie of the Year. So big, so he's not like a low name person. If you know who he is. I remember seeing him on YouTube and Ball is Life, the crazy dunks he can do. So when I heard that he got invited to the dunk contest, at first I'm thinking, congrats to him. Like if you know who McClung is, you're gonna see a show. And the crazier part about McClung is that he's not okay, hold on. He is not very tall compared to other NBA players. He's 6'2". That does seem tall, don't get me wrong. But for everyone else in the NBA that's like 6'4" to 6'8", it's not very tall compared to like other players in the league. However, he can jump. He can get up to the rim. If you guys saw the dunk contest, he can pull off these crazy dunks at his height, and I think that's incredible. Now, like I said, he won, and I would be a little bit embarrassed if I was the other competitors because they got beat out by a G leaguer, and that's not great. However, I'll get into the dunk contest and the whole thing in a minute here, though. Um, so with Mac McClung winning, I don't think he'll get an NBA contract just because, like I said, his height is kind of the issue, and kind of the way he plays probably won't fit in some NBA team stuff. But I think he should be looked at because he's not a bad player. He really isn't. He won Rookie of the Year. I believe he averages over 20 points a game in the G League. So I think someone should give him a chance. I know some people were trying to at the end of last year, but I would say maybe give him a chance. Maybe give him a chance. He may not be a starter. He may not be like, this crazy game changer, but at least, give him a shot, see what he can do. I know he said that that's kind of his big goals right now, is this is kind of like not like really such a detour, but like an extra step to get him ready for the NBA, and that was his ultimate goal, is make the NBA. But he just made his name known. He just won the dunk contest. Now to move on, I'm going to talk about the dunk contest real quick. Not to take away from Mac McClung. Congratulations on winning it. He went to Tech. I'm a big fan of Mac McClung. What I'm not a big fan of is how the dunk contest has turned out. I'm not a big fan of what it's become anymore. Because I remember when the dunk contest was like probably one of the most looked forward to events in All-Star Weekend. Obviously, like, we've seen some of the craziest dunks performed by people. Legendary names have won it. Kobe, Jordan, Vince Carter, all those names, Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine. We've seen these players put off highlights. But nowadays, we don't see that anymore. We don't see those stars joining the slam dunk contest. A lot of the time, nowadays, it's more of players we never really heard from. And I think that's what's hurting the dunk contest, because these players don't, these high caliber players, these star-studded names don't want to participate. I believe it was Ja Morant. He was saying that you put 1 million likes on whatever, I'll do the dunk contest. He shouldn't have to rely on likes to do the dunk contest. Like, I'm sorry, Ja, but that's not how that works. You should want to do the dunk contest, especially with him saying that, he's one of the most exciting players in the NBA. Every time he tries to dunk the ball, he tries to make it a top 10 play. So I would say put your money where your mouth is. Or maybe if he was healthy, Zion Williamson's another great example. You put him in the dunk contest, I'll sign up and watch. It's just that now, since the dunk contest is slowly deteriorating over time, it's just not being fun to watch, The only reason why I was excited for it was because of Mac McClung. And like I said, because I've seen what he did on YouTube, I've seen what he did at Texas Tech, I know he could pull off crazy dunks, so he would be perfect for the dunk contest. But other players that are like not well known are doing the dunk contest, and it helps them kind of get their name out there, obviously, and kind of, give people, a little bit of more, basketball knowledge on some of the players. But when it's still at the end of the day, they're not like these high praise names, like if Ja Morant would have done the dunk contest or Zion Williamson would have done the dunk contest. I believe LeBron James has never done a dunk contest in his career at all. And I believe Aaron Gordon said he's never going to do it again because he's been snubbed twice. And it's kind of crazy to see like how the dunk contest used to be seen as like this glorious event, and it was like very prestige if you just got invited to do the dunk contest, and it was even a higher prestige if you won the dunk contest. Now, I kind of think it's because which way the game has grown and what it's developed into. The game is now becoming more of a three-point shooting league, which is completely understandable. Obviously, Stephen Curry has changed the game. We've seen more players start to shoot from beyond the three-point line instead of being traditionally in the paint. Obviously, a lot more big men are starting to shoot from the three. Kristaps Porzingis is one. Dirk Nowitzki, he was definitely one of the innovators to come in and do it. Larry Bird back in the day, we saw he can do. And now that the three-point contest is kind of taking over the All-Star Weekend, and now the slam dunk contest is being in its shadow. And it kind of sucks because you used to see like all these exciting plays and these exciting dunks these players used to pull off. Like, I remember Blake Griffin dunking over the car. I thought that was incredible. Vince Carter with his rim in the basket. Vince, getting the name Vinsanity. It was one of the most prolific events, and now it's not really anything anybody talks about. Now, I believe somebody brought this up and asked if Matt McClung saved the dunk contest. I don't think he saved it because of that. I think he made it more interesting because he got brought in, and a lot of people, if they know who he is, is going to want to watch, because that's why I watched the dunk contest, because I knew who McClung was, and I was very excited for him to go in. So I believe he probably brought more viewers' attention to the dunk contest, especially if you know who he is. I know prior to the event, like Skip and Shannon had no idea who McClung was. I believe Skip knew he went to Texas Tech, and that was about it. They were like they were even saying like he was in the G League. Like, why are we bringing him in? Like, this is kind of like their point of the dunk contest isn't, as profound anymore. And I agree, because because the players are choosing not to do it, and that's what's kind of hurting the event. But now with what Matt McClung can do, I think it opens up maybe a couple more doors. I think that if they're gonna go this route and none of the NBA players are gonna want to do it, bring in a G Leaguer. If he beats out an NBA player, I mean, that makes the NBA player look bad, in my opinion. Because if I was in the dunk contest and Matt McClung, who's not even he's not like in the NBA, he's in the G League, and he beat me, and keep in mind, he had a great score. I believe he ended the night with a 540, which is very impressive. I think 3 out of the 4 rounds, he got a flat 50 across the board. I think only one, he got like a 49.4, but he still pulled off incredible dunks, than the other players. I believe one of them, he pulled out like a 3D printed basketball. I was like, yeah, I mean, but Matt McClung jumped over 2 people, and he did a 540 spin for a dunk. So that's just my opinion on it. I think that, if they want the NBA dunk contest to be bigger, these bigger name stars have to take the dunk contest. And that's just what I think. And that's probably going to be the only way you're going to save the dunk contest, is if you do something like that. So, congratulations to Matt McClung on being the 2023 dunk contest champion. And we'll just have to see what they're going to do for next year. All right, next up, some drama. D-R-A-M-A. Drama following, you guessed it, Lamar Jackson. So, Lamar Jackson is still without a home. He has not gotten his contract extension from the Baltimore Ravens. The franchise tag is available, but he's not taking it. Where do we go from here? So, to kind of go off, should Lamar Jackson take the franchise tag? In my opinion, no. He should not. He won an MVP. He's gone to the playoffs. He has elevated the Baltimore Ravens team. And you can just tell with Tyler Huntley and anyone else at that quarterback position, the Ravens aren't the same. And we've seen it, and it's pretty evident. So Lamar Jackson shouldn't take a franchise tag, in my opinion. He shouldn't. Now, realistically, if I was his agent and he wants more money, but I believe he doesn't have an agent, so I guess that's kind of out the door here. But if he wants to stay in Baltimore, the question's going to be, are you going to play under a franchise tag? Because if you are, we will give you the franchise tag, which I believe the franchise tag is about $40 million or $30 million. It's like somewhere in that range. And, he can get franchise tag again, he gets $60 million until they work out a long-term deal. But is he willing to play under the franchise tag is the big question in Baltimore. And if he doesn't want to, what should the Baltimore Ravens try to do? And in my opinion, they should trade him if he doesn't want to. But I'll get into that reason in a minute. But what this also is affecting, Lamar Jackson trying to make up his mind if he's going to stay or not. It's affecting the other free agents that they are potentially trying to look at. Right now, they need a wide receiver because Rashawn Bateman, he seems like he might be a number one, but he got injured, so we haven't gotten enough variables to find that answer out yet. But he does need a playmaker, especially if they're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. But a lot of people that the Ravens have been trying to recruit, I'll ask the same question. Is Lamar Jackson going to play next season? Because that'll determine if I'm going to play or not, or if I want to come to Baltimore. And that's what I believe the Ravens organization and Lamar is not realizing, that this is not just affecting, whose wallet is going to hurt and whose wallet is going to get filled. It's hurting a lot more because everyone is wondering, is Lamar going to stay or is he going to go? Because we need to find out in case they need to go tell all these other free agents that we don't have the money for you, or if maybe free agents want to come, take a hometown discount, and play with Lamar. And it's this problem just going to keep growing and growing. I believe they have until March 7th to, I believe, officially give him the franchise tag, or in July. It's one of the two, but I know for sure they need to work out a deal soon. Now, if Lamar Jackson does not want to play under the franchise tag, I would think about trading him before he becomes a free agent, because if you let him walk, you got nothing, and someone's going to pay that much money. And one of the worst things that's probably happened is obviously the Deshaun Watson, him getting all that $236 million in guaranteed money after he missed 20 something games because of suspension. He was out for 11 for injury, along with sitting out. So they obviously Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns, mismanaged how they handled that situation because now Lamar Jackson wants that kind of money, especially since I believe he's better than Deshaun, because he has that athletic ability to escape and run. So, that caused the issue, and now we're at where we're at. So, if Baltimore does not want to give him the money, I would look into trading him because at least you're going to get some good draft capital. You could probably get a good player out of it, and you can see what you want to do for next season. If you want to go try to get a free agent quarterback like Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be available. I know him and Shanahan's relationship is over. They are done with each other, and he's going to be gone. So maybe Aaron Rodgers, if you want to try that. I don't think so because he has a pretty good, hefty contract with him. Or if you want to trade him and try to get a high first round pick and get a quarterback in the draft and try again. The Ravens have options here, but the thing is that they either have to meet in the middle with Lamar Jackson or just decide, all right, well, we're going to franchise tag you or we're going to trade you before the trade deadline, and then that way whoever wants to pay him the money can pay him the money. And I think that's probably going to be the most kind of the more responsible way to do it. That way they don't run into what happened with Deshaun, and they don't give him a lot of guaranteed money, and then they end up being stuck with Lamar Jackson, because we have to also keep in mind he has been hurt, so that is a little bit of a concern. That's probably like one of the main things that they're going into negotiations about, is that how long can Lamar Jackson last, especially since he's kind of that running mobile quarterback, but he has taken a lot of hits, especially with how Greg Roman ran that offense, very run heavy, using his athleticism. And I believe Lamar Jackson missed a total of 11 games, the whole time he's been injured. So we can't rule that out also. So I think that's what the Baltimore Ravens are trying to do. They're trying to be careful with how they go about this, so that way they don't give him a lot of guaranteed money and they end up having a problem later on. So that's probably why the Ravens are going that direction. But if they're fully set on maybe not giving him that extension, I would look into trading him, because there's probably a lot of teams out there that will give up their weight in gold to get Lamar Jackson. There's a bunch of teams that will probably do it. The Buccaneers probably would do it somehow. And who else would do it? I said the Raiders could. They just got rid of Derek Carr, and I believe they have the third biggest cap space in the NFL, so they have a possibility. The Commanders just got Eric Bieniemy, so that's another option. We'll talk about Eric Bieniemy later in the episode. He's another example, though. The Jets are trying to find a quarterback. They maybe go try to trade for him. Carolina maybe. So there's options that the Ravens have. It's not like they're dead in the water with no options and they have to pay him. They have their options of what they can do, and they know teams will pay their weight in gold. I'm sure if the Texans really wanted Lamar, they'll probably give him the first round pick, and they'll get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. So it's not out of the question, and I think that's what the Ravens are doing. They are weighing their options. But in my opinion, they should give him the contract. They should give him a contract that's healthy for both of them and figure it out through there. Because Lamar Jackson's earned it. It's not like he was on the bubble of earning his money. He's earned his money, because we saw when he was gone this past season that the Ravens, even though they had a good record to make it, they got eliminated in the first round. And there were some games where they should have won if Lamar Jackson would have played. Or they probably would have gotten real close to probably passing the Bengals if they didn't have to, if they did not have Lamar Jackson present. So that's definitely kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. There is that Lamar Jackson has helped that organization, and it sucks that he's trying to get his money, trying to get paid, but the Ravens are a little hesitant. So hopefully they can figure it out soon. I'm sure we're not done talking about this, and I'm sure this is going to be a long road and a long offseason if the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson can't figure it out. Next to talk about, this was one of the biggest shockers that I've heard this week. The Dallas Cowboys interested in quarterback C.J. Stroud? So, what do I think of this? Should the Cowboys get C.J. Stroud? No, there is other positions we need to worry about besides quarterback. I know what happened with Dak, and I know I'm having my doubts about Dak. I was a big believer in Dak Prescott for a long time until after the season. I'm slowly losing faith here. But do I think we should get CJ Stroud? No, I don't, because I know how much it's probably gonna take to get the first round pick in the draft. Because for sure we're gonna have to probably ship off Dak Prescott, but we're probably gonna have to give up our first round pick so that way they can get something later in the draft. We're probably gonna have to either give up CeeDee Lamb or another good player to get the first round pick. And I don't think Jerry Jones is gonna do that. I don't think he wants to give up that kind of draft capital for a quarterback that may or may not be good in the NFL. Even though he's a top prospect, we've seen it before. Top prospects in the draft sometimes don't work out in the NFL. So it's a gamble that he's taking. Now CJ Stroud, he has potential. We've seen it at Ohio State and what he can do. And it's pretty evident that he's probably going to be a solid quarterback. However, would I want to give up draft capital to deal with a position that we could deal with maybe later in the draft? There's a lot of good quarterbacks this year going in, and forget about other worries? No, because I can name two positions right now that we need. First of all, cornerback, because we saw what happened after Anthony Brown got hurt. We were weak at cornerback aside of Trayvon Diggs, and that is my concern, is that if we do not deal with that position right now, we're going to have a problem if Anthony Brown gets hurt again, because Bland wasn't that great. Xavier Rhodes only came in towards the end. Kelvin Joseph is not good either. We don't have much quarters to work with that are either on par or at least close to good as Trayvon Diggs is, and that's the problem. And that's what I've been saying has been our biggest problem, is that we do not have an extra cornerback to pair with Trayvon Diggs to help solidify that defense. We already have we had a pretty good defense. It was our coverage what I was scared of, because every time, if it wasn't Trayvon Diggs, I was scared we were going to get burned because Kelvin Joseph cannot guard these, number 2 wide receivers, or if they have to go up against number 1s. I believe whenever Kelvin was going up against Terry McLaurin, he was just getting burned. He was getting cooked by him. And that's not the only wide receiver he's been burnt by. And it's getting scary because there's a lot of good wide receivers coming in. There's the Justin Jeffersons of the world. CeeDee Lamb is pretty good. Luckily, he's on our team. Stephon Diggs and others. So it's kind of evident that we need that position. Adam Thielen, who's a number 2 wide receiver, he's still really good. I know Justin Jefferson is there, but Adam Thielen is not a wide receiver to sleep on. So there's, all these teams have those good duos and trios of wide receivers, and if we do not have the cornerbacks to back it up, we're not going to be a great defense because we keep getting burnt in the passing game. And our front four can only do so much. They can only get to the quarterback just as fast. I know Micah Parsons is a great defensive player. He's probably the closest thing we've seen to Lawrence Taylor, a lot of analytics have said. But there's only so much he can do. He gets double teamed by offenses. He gets shit by the running back. They are literally trying to make sure he doesn't hit home. And if our corners cannot, give that time to our front 7 to at least go rush the quarterback or give him a hurry or push or something, a sack, we're going to be in trouble. So definitely cornerback is a concern, and I believe it's a bigger concern than quarterback right now. Another one is wide receiver, because we saw what happened when we only have CeeDee Lamb, and that's it. When T.Y. Hilton came in, he was a little bit of a help. Michael Gallup is not the same Michael Gallup as we saw prior. Noah Brown has had one too many chances, in my opinion. Tolbert was a receiver we drafted. Obviously, they didn't like what they saw. So wide receiver would be another area I would hit on going into the draft or going into free agency, because we need another wide receiver. It can't be just CeeDee Lamb all the time. The game is too different. We're far beyond, just having only Dez Bryant who can go up and get the ball and we'll be fine. Or we had only Michael Irvin who can go get the ball and we'll be fine. Drew Pearson. You guys get what I mean here. So we're far beyond that. We saw what happened with the Minnesota Vikings, who mostly give the ball to Justin Jefferson. After a while, you're going to figure it out. Just cover Justin Jefferson, rush Kirk Cousins. They can't move the ball. So we have seen this issue before, and we saw it this past season with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, don't get me wrong. It gave CeeDee Lamb a career season. Got the Pro Bowl selection. So great for him. But offensively, how does that help? How does that help Dak Prescott? How does it kind of, get the pressure off him? It doesn't, because he has to wait for his number 1 to get open. And if all these defenses are figuring out just to cover CeeDee Lamb, it's only a matter of time before we can't move the ball. And I'm already nervous as it is with Mike McCarthy coming in to coach. So with that in mind, I would rather go get another wide receiver than worry about the quarterback position. Because at least with quarterback, we can go late into the draft and get someone. It's not like it's not like just C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young are there and that's it. There's the Tennessee quarterback. Obviously, Max Duggan is there. There's options aside of those two, and probably the top four, which is going to be Bryce. More than likely, it's going to be Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Richardson. Those are probably going to be the top four quarterbacks going into the draft this year. But we can make it work. But I think there's more areas to cover than quarterback right now. I think that wide receiver and cornerback, not in that order. I would say probably of importance, it's going to be corner and wide receiver are going to be the two positions that we need the most going into next season. Because if we don't, we're in trouble all over again, and we're going to be back to where we were this past season. Yeah, it was a good record, but we did not get to the NFC Championship when we were projected to get there, and we had a chance to get there, and we're not getting there. So I think we should hold off on quarterback for now. We should, because if anything, we still have Cooper Rush, and we could always draft another quarterback. So keep that in mind, Cowboys fans. We do not need a quarterback right now. No need to hit the panic button. I think if we get another wide receiver, figure out what we're going to do with Tony Pollard, if we're going to give him a contract or what, and then go from there. But for sure, cornerback, I go get in the draft. I think I would take that Porter kid out of Penn State, and I would have to relook at the wide receiver list, but I would take one of the top wide receivers coming into the draft, or I would go into free agency. I know that there's been talk about maybe Odell coming in. I believe there's been rumors that Trayvon Diggs is going to get Stephon to come because he wants to leave Buffalo. Who knows? But also, I know how Jerry Jones works. He believes in the guys he drafts. But if we want to be realistic and want to possibly contend for a Super Bowl, we got to go get some people in the free agency market, because we saw what happened when Amari Cooper came in and we traded for him. He was spectacular. And then when we paired him with CeeDee Lamb, we were the best offense in the league. So hopefully we keep that in mind. Or if we are going to go into the draft and try to get our players and our guys, I go get a cornerback or a wide receiver. For sure, cornerback. Because I think we can make it work with wide receivers, or we can wait to the later rounds or go to free agency for wide receivers. But for right now, I go get a cornerback. All right, so next topic, it's probably the last one for the podcast, is Eric Bieniemy gets signed as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. First of all, congratulations to Eric Bieniemy. He got a coaching job somewhere else other than Kansas City, so I know a lot of people have been kind of rooting for him to get a head coaching job. I believe Andy Reid has even said, why does he not have a head coaching job? I know it's not, but here's some positives about this. The positive about Eric Bieniemy going to Washington is, number one, it's going to help Washington's offense. Number two, it gives him a chance to run the show. Because back in Kansas City, Andy Reid was the one that called the plays. He was the one that kind of schemed everything, and Eric Bieniemy was there to help. Now we get to see what he can do outside of Big Red in Kansas City. And it's very exciting to see what he learned under Andy Reid, and now he's going to bring that to a very, very needy Washington Commanders team. And the only issue I really have, aside of, I'll get to the coaching thing in a minute, is offensively, they just need a quarterback. Because Carson Wentz is not the answer. I've been telling everybody that for a couple years. He's not that great. He had one good season and never had a good one again. So he's out. Taylor Heineke, I think he's a great backup. He's a hard worker. He has that locker room leadership. He has that moxie with the team. He can connect with everybody. He has a great relationship with Terry McLaurin, so I think you keep him. And I believe Sam Howell, the rookie that they drafted last year, is in the works right now. So I think that's their biggest issue, is that they need a quarterback. Because kind of listing those three players, you're kind of thinking, I maybe go with another option here. So I think that they should probably do that, and I think that's going to be Eric Bieniemy's first line of business. Get a quarterback. Whether it be in the draft or trade for Lamar Jackson, trade for maybe Aaron Rodgers. I highly doubt it, though. Bring Derek Carr in and then trade away whoever you want or release whoever you want and go from there. Now, some things that are kind of like negatives, though, with Eric Bieniemy, and this was by LaShawn Shady McCoy. He was on Speak earlier this week, and it was that he did not call the plays. because he did play with Kansas City. He won a Super Bowl with Eric Bieniemy, and he said like that was his biggest thing is that he didn't call plays. What happened was Andy Reid would tell him the plays, and he was the one that would relate it to Patrick Mahomes, and that's how they did their offense. So that's kind of his big concern. And do I agree with that? I think yes, I would agree that he didn't call plays, but he was there and he was able to learn under Andy Reid, and he had, they had great success. And if Andy Reid is vouching for Eric Bieniemy, then I think that they should be okay. I think that it's probably going to take a little bit for that train to roll. It's not going to be this unstoppable Kansas City offense like they had there this past year. They don't have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. They don't have a Tyreek Hill. They are going to have to work with what they got. And I think Eric Bieniemy knows that. So kind of going about this, Eric Bieniemy knows it's a clean slate, and now he's going to show that why, first of all, he should have been a head coach and why he deserves it. Now, do I think this is a gamble? I do. Because only negatives can come from here if everything fails. Because if Eric Bieniemy and that offense doesn't grow within his tenure there, everyone's going to say that he should have not been the head coach then. Because if he could not elevate that Washington offense, then he should not be a head coach. And that's where my fear is for Eric Bieniemy, is that if he does not do well, he's probably never going to see that head coaching job. Because there has been a lot of coaches that have gotten head coaching jobs before him. Matt Nagy was definitely one, and we saw what happened with him. So that's kind of like my biggest concern with Eric Bieniemy, and this why I think this is actually a big gamble, because he's either in win or lose mode here. If this works out and is successful, he just won the millions. He won the big lot there in Vegas. But if he loses, he lost everything and his mortgage to his house along with the car payment and probably his plane ticket home. So that's going to be the big issue with Eric Bieniemy, and I think it's going to be very hard for him to probably get another job again, because especially just kind of how the NFL kind of works and what we've seen, prior to it, the whole racial thing. I'm not going to really get into it right now, but as I said, it's taken him this long to get a job somewhere else. I know he was interviewing for other places, and they didn't give it to him, but I think that if this doesn't work out, he's probably never going to see that head coaching job ever, and there have been coaches that, did not deserve to have one, got one before he did. So this is a gamble for Eric Bieniemy, and hopefully it works out for him, man, because he's earned it. He's worked hard. He, took a lot of time under Andy Reid to kind of learn, and now he gets to do it on his own. And I think that's another thing that Shady McCoy was saying, is that he doesn't have Big Red. He doesn't. He doesn't have Andy Reid. He doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have Isaiah Pacheco. He doesn't have this, just this great offensive mind. It's all him now. And I think that's not more of a weakness, though. I think it's more exciting, because now we get to see what he took from Andy Reid and what he can do and mix it together and hopefully, help the Commanders team, elevate their offense, who was very poor this past season. So that's very exciting to watch, Commanders fans. I'm happy for you guys getting a competent offensive coordinator. And also a big thing, though, if Eric Bieniemy does well and they still don't have a good season, he's the assistant head coach. So if Ron Rivera gets the boot, guess who's head coach? Eric Bieniemy. So this is a situation kind of made up in heaven for Eric Bieniemy, because in case Ron Rivera steps down or he gets fired, he can always come in and now he has the head coaching job. But like I said, it's a gamble. Either this job can help him get that head coaching job, get him to win the millions at the slots, or he loses everything along with his plane ticket, his car payment, the mortgage, and probably his false gold teeth if he has any. So that's going to be the big thing going about this upcoming season, and it's going to be definitely interesting to keep an eye on. Now, I don't think they're going to win the East. They're not going to win the NFC East, because they still have Philadelphia, who I don't know how they're going to go about their coordinating problem. The Dallas Cowboys are still there. The Giants are kind of up and coming. So we'll have to wait and see. By the way, I apologize. That is not the last topic I want to get into today. I got one more thing to talk about. Daniel Jones. Oh my God, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones asking for $45 million in contract money from the New York Giants. My first thought was, this has to be a joke. I really hope this is a joke, because Daniel Jones has not earned $45 million. He maybe earned $20 million, maybe like 2 extra years. He has not earned that money. He's not the reason why the Giants went to the playoffs this past year. He wasn't. It was Saquon Barkley. It was. Now, I know Giants fans and maybe some other people are going to say, hold on, he didn't have any good wide receivers. Well, I'm sorry, but you can make it work if you're the real deal. He was a high round pick. I believe he was a first round pick. He should be technically worth the money and worth the pick, and he can make it work. And Saquon Barkley, as I said this past season, he's going to carry the Giants. If anyone deserves $45 million a year, it's Saquon Barkley. He's the one that deserves the money, not Daniel Jones. No, I don't agree with that. And I really hope that was a joke because that's very outrageous. I would never pay Daniel Jones that kind of money ever in my life. As I said, maybe Saquon will get the $45 million a year because he definitely earned it. He should have won Comeback Player of the Year, in my opinion. And that's kind of how that works. You earn the money. Just because you're quarterback, and I know the market is crazy thanks to the Cleveland Browns mishandling Deshaun Watson, but you got to earn your money. I know, like, Dak is an example of, well, he got his money and he hasn't been that great, whatever, but I would still pick Dak Prescott over Daniel Jones because if I take away, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Dak at least gives me a shot to win the game. I take away Saquon Barkley from Daniel Jones, no chance. They're not going to win. And we saw what happened when they didn't have Saquon Barkley. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL. So this isn't something, this really shouldn't be up for debate if Daniel Jones should get $45 million. He just shouldn't, in my opinion. He has not earned it. Maybe $20 million for an extra 2 years if they want to keep him and kind of see what they have and go from there. Then they really need to fix their wide receiver situation over there too. And go about it like that route. But $45 million, I really hope he was kidding and that was just a joke because he is not getting $45 million. Doesn't matter what the market is for quarterbacks. I would rather have him walk in free agency and sign Derek Carr and give him money. I'd rather trade a lot of draft capital to go get Lamar Jackson over Daniel Jones. I would, give up draft capital to possibly go get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. That's how much I'd rather go with anybody else but Daniel Jones. So, like I said, hopefully that was a joke. If not, no, you're not getting $45 million, buddy. I'm sorry. Saquon will, but you will not. But alrighty, everybody, that will wrap things up on this episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. Remember, I am on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at CAV Sports or CAV Sports Podcast. If you are listening to this, it will be on YouTube along with Amazon and Spotify. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.